I buried my 8-year-old son John, alone under the relentless Savannah sun. The air was so heavy with humidity it felt like breathing through soaked cloth. Sweat slid down my spine beneath my black dress as I kept glancing toward the cemetery gates, waiting for a car, a vibration, any sign of life from the people who were supposed to be there. I told myself they were stuck in traffic, that my sister's flight was delayed, that anything had gone wrong. I kept making excuses for them until the first shovel of dirt struck the coffin. That's when my phone buzzed. Hope surged stupidly, desperately, as I pulled it from my purse. An apology, I thought. A reason. It wasn't a text. It was a link. A Zillow listing. 5 bedrooms. Oceanfront. Captioned by my mother with 2 words. Fresh start. The price sat there in bold numbers. $1.5 million. The exact amount of my son's life insurance and trust fund combined. While I was lowering my child into the ground, my family wasn't grieving. They were shopping. I drove home in silence, the AC blasting against skin that still felt scorched. The back seat overflowed with white lilies from the service, their scent thick and suffocating. Death followed me home. Inside my apartment, the quiet wasn't peaceful. It was oppressive. I dropped my keys on the counter and stared at the empty chair at the kitchen table where John used to eat his cereal. I waited for my knees to buckle, for grief to take me apart. It never came. Instead, something colder settled in. An icy clarity that sharpened everything it touched. I opened my laptop. I logged into the florist's website, my mother's account. I knew the password because I was always the one ordering the gifts she took credit for. There it was. Funeral spray. Ordered 14 days ago. They hadn't been delayed. They hadn't been caught in traffic. They had planned their absence. They had scheduled my son's burial like an inconvenience. Something inside me snapped, but cleanly. No screaming. No tears. Just the final break of a hope I hadn't realized I was still holding. Next tab, my bank. The joint credit card I'd shared with my sister Destiny. While I was choosing my son's casket, she spent $400 at Sephora. While I wrote his eulogy, she spent $200 on sushi. I removed her as an authorized user. Card canceled. Then the SmartLock app for the family cabin, my cabin. Bought with my divorce settlement so John could see snow. I deleted their access codes. All of them. Access denied. Streaming services. Cloud storage. Every shared account one by one. Cut. They thought grief made me weak. They were wrong. Grief burned away everything unnecessary. I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd kept hidden for years. I called it the ledger. Row 1. $96,000. Money I'd paid toward my parents' second mortgage after my father retired early. Good girl, he'd said back then. At least you're making yourself useful. That was my role. That was the rent I paid to exist in their lives. More rows followed: vacations, car accidents, influencer trips I wasn't tagged in. And the last entry, 2 days after John died. Package from my mother. Inside, unpaid bills. Foreclosure notices. Debt warnings. On top, a yellow sticky note in her handwriting. Do the right thing, Sarah. Family helps family. That was their condolence. Not flowers. Not comfort. A bill. They didn't see a grieving mother. They saw an inheritance. The pounding on my door came at 2 p.m. My father didn't knock. He entered, inspected, judged. My mother murmured concern like a script she'd memorized. Then she placed the papers on the table. A voluntary conservatorship. If you don't sign, my father said calmly, we have you committed. They had forged emails, statements, evidence. They had already decided I was crazy. As if I wasn't, then they were monsters. And they couldn't live with that. Outside, my sister waited in her Range Rover, ring light glowing. Filming. Monetizing. I asked for time. They gave me 24 hours. What they didn't know was that I'd already made the call. Eric, federal attorney. And Kelly, my late husband's aunt. A retired judge. They're drowning, Eric said. Illegal gambling debt. $400,000. Your parents co-signed. They don't want to save you, Kelly added. They want the money before it gets violent. So I gave them what they wanted. I transferred $450,000. They toasted. Then the accounts froze. IRS whistleblower report. Automatic hold. The mob noticed. Chaos followed. I walked out while they screamed. The fallout was swift. My parents lost the house. My sister disappeared. I received a whistleblower reward, enough to rebuild. I used the rest of John's trust to create the John Morgan Astronomy Scholarship. I didn't lose my family. I stopped carrying them. And that was how I finally learned to let go.